Hello, I am Dr. Ghazni. I want to show the effect of journals impact on the research impact. This presentation is part 3 of the workshop entitled as a Increasing the Impact of Research: Strategies and Practical Guidelines for Researchers, Universities, and Research Institutions. Learning objectives of these presentations are: first, exploring the relationship between journal's impact factor and the paper's number of received citations. Second, now about the publishing behavior of Nobel Prize winners. Third, now about the publishing strategies in top global ranked universities. In this presentation, first, I talk about the data used in the presentation. Second, I talk about the concepts of normalized citations and journals impact classes. Third, I talk about the effect of journals impact on the paper's impact. And fourth, I provide the conclusions. And finally, I take a quick look at the workshop content. To present the effect of journals impact on the paper's impact, a random sample of papers were extracted from Thomson Reuters Web of Science during 2011 to 2015, where only citable documents were processed. In addition, a random sample of papers of the 28 Nobel Prize winners extracted from Web of Science. First, we should take a quick look at the concept of normalized citations. To compare the research performance of two or more universities, researchers, or papers, citations should be normalized. The number of citations made to the field's papers is vary from one field to another one. Moreover, older papers have more time to receive citations than the newer papers. Therefore, to control the difference between fields and publication years, we normalize the citations before any kind of comparison. To normalize the citations, first, the average number of citations in each field and publication year were calculated, and then the paper's citations was divided to the average number of citations in the paper's fields and the publication year. If the result of normalization is equal to 1, then it means that the output performs just as expected for the global average. If the result of normalization is greater than 1, then it means that the output is more cited than expected according to the global average. For example, 1.48 means 48% more cited than expected. If the result of normalization is less than 1, then it means that the output is cited less than expected according to the global average. For example, 0.8 means 20% less cited than expected. The acronyms used in these presentations are: 1. JCR is the acronym for Thomson Reuters Journal Citation Reports. 2. JIF is the acronym for Journal's Impact Factor. 3. IF is the acronym for Impact Factor. Thomson Reuters maintain both citation and non-citation databases, where they have some journals in common. The Web of Science core collection is the main database used for evaluating publication. The Web of Science index core journals in the fields. This group of journals are regularly published and cited. They are the most prestigious journals in the world. The JCR only covers a subset of journals indexed in the Web of Sciences, which involve those journals that have impact factor or immediacy index value. In the JCR, the journals were divided into different quartiles and percentiles based on their impact. In quartile ranking, the top 25% journals with the highest impact categorized as a Q1 journals, while the bottom 25% journals with the lowest impact categorized as a Q4 journals. The percentile ranking is similar to quartile ranking, except that in the percentile ranking, journals are classified into percentiles like top 1%, top 1 to 5%, and top 11 to 15% journals. Test your knowledge. One journal is ranked as a Q1 journal in a subject field, and also it could be ranked as a Q2 journal in another subject field. This statement is correct. Each journal is ranked only in one quartile. This statement is incorrect. Which option shows the proportion of journals in each quartile as a fraction of whole journals in the JCR 2015? The correct answer is 27 to 31% because of this fact that one journal could be classified in more than one quartile. Q1 journals publish about 36% of papers, while Q4 journals consist of 40% of papers. So, on average, the most prestigious journals publish more papers compared to the lower prestigious ones. The journals with the highest impact factor not only publish more papers than the lower impact ones, but also the journals with the highest impact factor receive more citations than the journals with the lower impact factor. The papers of the Q1 journals receive about 59% of the citations, where the papers in the Q4 journals receive about 4% of citations. Choose the correct option. Q1 journals publish about 2.5 times more papers than Q4 journals. This statement is correct. Q1 journals receive about 14 times more citations than Q4 journals. This statement is correct. Top 1% papers receive about 18% of the world's citations, although the major part of the top 1% papers publishes in Q1 journals. A small fraction of top 1% papers belongs to the other group of journals. About 85% of the top 1% highly cited papers published in Q1 journals. This number for Q4 journals is 2%. Bottom 50% less cited papers consist of 50% of journals papers. However, they only receive about 4% of journal citations. On average, the papers that are published in Q1 journals receive more citations than those papers that are published in other group of journals. But about 20% of the papers of the Q1 journals classify as the bottom 50% less cited papers. Hence, Q1 journals include the highly cited papers as well as the lower cited papers and also the uncited papers. Not all papers in the Q1 journals necessarily has high impact. A cancer journal for clinicians has the highest impact factor during 2005 to 2015, according to the JCR. As you can see, these journals published about 19 citable documents in 2011. Two most cited papers in the 2011 received about 89% of the journal's citations. In other words, in this year, about 11% of papers receive about 89% of the citations. In the 2011, these journals include 9 top 1% papers out of its 19 citable documents. So, 47% of these journals' papers are classified as a top 1% papers. The number of normalized citations per papers for Q1 journals is 1.6, which means that papers of the Q1 journals 60% more cited than the global average. Papers of the Q2 journals 20% less cited than the global average, and papers of the Q3 journals 50% less cited than the global average. Similarly, papers of the Q4 journals 70% less cited than the global average. On average, publishing one paper in a Q1 journal increased the number of citations approximately equals to publishing 2 papers in a Q2 journal, publishing 3 papers in a Q3 journal, and publishing 5 papers in a Q4 journal. To examine the publishing strategies in top global ranked universities, among top 200 global ranked universities, 12 universities were chosen randomly. Harvard and Stanford were chosen from top 1 to 10 global ranked universities. Vanderbilt and Zurich were chosen where they ranked as the top 51 to 100 global ranked universities. And University of Basel and Ghent universities were selected from the top 101 to 150 global ranked universities. And you see the other universities that is selected from 151 to 200 universities, Technical University of Denmark and San Kun Kwon University from South Korea. As you can see in this slide, the top global ranked universities publish a considerable part of their papers in the Q1 journals. Harvard and Stanford universities, as the top 1 to 10 global ranked universities, publish about 68% of their papers in the Q1 journals. The top 51 to 100 global ranked universities publish about 60% of their papers in Q1 journals. The top 101 to 150 global ranked universities publish about 57% of their papers in the Q1 journals, and this number for the top 151 to 200 global ranked universities is about 52%. Top global ranked universities publish a small percentage of their publications in the Q4 journals. The proportion of papers published in Q4 journals as a fraction of Harvard and Stanford University's papers is 3%. The top 51 to 100 global rank universities publish about 5% of their papers in the Q4 journals. This number is 6% for the top 101 to 150 global ranked universities. On average, those papers published in Q1 journals cited more than the global average. For example, the papers of the top 1 to 10 global ranked universities published in Q1 journals 180% more cited than the global average. The number of normalized citations per papers for those Q1 journals papers that belongs to the top 101 to 150 global ranked universities is 2.3, which means this group of papers 130% more cited than the global average. On average, those papers published in Q4 journals cited less than the global average. This fact is also true even for top global ranked universities. For example, those papers published in Q4 journals by Harvard and Stanford as the top 1 to 10 global ranked universities in the world, 20% less cited than the global average. The papers published in Q4 journals by other group of universities also 40% to 50% less cited than the global average. The Q1 journals could be classified into top 1 to 5% journals, top 6 to 10% journals, top 11 to 15% journals, top 16 to 20% journals, and top 21 to 25% journals with respect to their impact factor value. In each class, the papers receive different number of citations. The papers published in top 1 to 5% journals 220% more cited than the global average, while the same value for top 21 to 25% journals is 10%. In this slide, you can see that the top 1 to 10 global ranked universities publish about 18% of their papers in top 1 to 5% journals. Similarly, about 12% of papers of the top 51 to 100 global ranked universities publish in top 1 to 5% journals. The top 1 to 10 global ranked universities publish about 34% of their papers in the top 1 to 10% journals. Similarly, about 25% of papers of the top 51 to 100 global ranked universities publish in the top 1 to 10% journals. This value for the top 151 to 200 global ranked universities is 18%. The Nobel Prize winners published about 73% of their papers in Q1 journals, while only about 2% of their papers published in Q4 journals. As you can see in this slide, This group of scientists prefer to publish the results of their research in the higher impact journals than the lower impact ones. On average, the paper of Nobel Prize winners published in Q1 journals 250% more cited than the global average, while the papers published by them in the Q3 journals 20% less cited than the global average. The papers of the Nobel Prize winners published in the Q1 journals receive about 91% of citations made to the paper of this group of scientists, while the same percentage for the Q4 journals papers of them is 1%. The Nobel Prize winners published about 13% of their papers in the top 1 to 5% journals. They also published about 25% of their papers in the top 6 to 10% journals. So, about 38% of their papers published in the top 1 to 10% journals. About 26% of citations made to the papers of the Nobel Prize winners have been received by those Nobelist papers published in the top 1 to 5% journals. This percentage for top 6 to 10% journals is 42%. So, about 68% of the citations made to the papers of the Nobel Prize winners have been received by those Nobelist papers published in the top 1 to 10% journals. The number of normalized citations per papers for those papers of the Nobel Prize winners published in the top 1 to 5% journals is 4.6, which means that they 360% more cited than the global average, while the same number for those papers of the Nobel Prize winners published in the top 21 to 25% journals is 80%. The impact factor is more count the impact of papers on the scientific communities than innovations and industries. To solve this problem, technological impact factor were proposed and compared with the impact factor in several papers. Hence, in the near future, technological impact factor should be provided, and in that case, the statistics provided in this presentation might be changed to some extent. Choose the correct option. A university published 1,200 papers annually. The university published 20% of the papers in Q1 journals, 26% in Q2 journals, 27% in Q3 journals, and 27% in Q4 journals. What is the average number of normalized citations of the university? The right answer is 0.7. Choose the correct option. A university published about 600 papers in Q1 journals. The university published 18% of the papers in the top 1 to 5% journals, 26% in the top 6 to 10% journals, 29% in the top 11 to 15% journals, 15% in the top 16 to 20% journals, and 12% in the top 21 to 25% journals. What is the average number of normalized citations of the university for these 600 papers? The answer is about 1. On average, those papers published in the higher impact journals receive more citations than those papers published in the lower impact ones. Top global ranked universities publish many more papers in the higher impact journals than the lower impact ones. Ranking journals in percentiles is more appropriate for estimating the effect of place of publication in terms of journals on the impact of research. The higher ranked universities receive more citations than the lower ranked ones, even when they publish in the same group of journals. So, there are many more factors that increase the impact of research. The Nobel Prize winners receive more citations than the world average, even when they publish in the same group of journals. So, there are many more factors that increase the impact of research. I think focus merely on publishing in the higher impact journals is not a good strategy. Instead, work on a set of problems related to the societies, industries, as well as the scientific communities is more convenient. Hence, problem-oriented approach is more appropriate than journal-oriented approach. On average, those papers published in the journals with the higher impact factor receive more number of citations. However, this is not always true.